Remember the intro, Matt?
Why is all the pressure put on me?
Wait.
Let's talk about this.
And then you say, like, my name's Matt, my name's Abigail. That's the intro. That's where the intro starts. Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like, hello, and then it's our names, and then we're like, and this is the Polyglot Progress podcast.
You guys don't know how stressed I am
Sometimes
right
that's
now.
a little
I just
too much
want to
for
go to the
Matt.
Faroe Islands and climb a mountain, okay?
Climb a mountain.
Hello.
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 My name is Matt.
My name is Abigail.
My name is Ophelia.
And this is the Polyglot
Progress
Progress
podcast.
Smooth.
Very well
We're
done, everybody.
back with Ophelia as our guest.
Hello again.
Would you
So
like to
sorry.
introduce yourself again? It seems weird because we're recording it in the same day, but it'll be up.
I was
At
going
a
to say,
different
this is
time than
actually
our
being
last
recorded a
one.
week later, but we all decided to put on the same clothes to make it look
Yeah.
like it was...
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm not done with being a librarian. I need to go back to it. Or whatever stupid thing it was I said earlier. Like,
Put my cat over there again.
yeah, it's good. You know,
She's just going to
the
stay there all
licking
day.
will recommence. It's really nice. How do I don't know. I feel like, you know, I sort
Language
of just,
Who
connoisseur.
are you? What do
Yeah.
you do?
YouTube
that's a good
video
question.
maker.
Yeah,
dude.
just like language videos on the internet, and like try my hardest to be Abigail.
There you go.
There we go.
You have it here first, folks.
Abigail Amateur, one might say.
Sorry, I kept a straight face for too long. I think it's bad because I really like it, and I would have just kept it. But then I feel like no, it's the internet, and you should probably clarify.
Next time I'm like too sick to do something, like it's like the Polyglot Progress
we'll just do a
podcast. I'm like,
podcast,
I'm not
it's just-
feeling well. I'm like, Ophelia, can you pretend to be me? She doesn't even like acknowledge that it's not me. She's like, it's Abigail.
yeah.
It's like,
feel like the only thing
my
I-
name
the
is
only thing
Matt,
I can
my
do-
name is Abigail.
And this is the Polyglot Progress podcast. Yeah. I feel like the only thing I could do is in an impression of you is the way you say which is like
Okay,
you
that's
say
so
in my mind
terrifying.
with OHM. That's all I can do.
That's a good-
I'll work on it.
That's a good I need
okay.
like an orthography done, written up of like Abigail's dialect of English.
Yeah. And then when you need time off,
There you go.
yeah.
That can be our exchange. You can help me with my French accent, and I'll help you truly perfect your accent of me.
Abigail. Yeah, cool. I like that. Yeah,
Oh,
good.
that's so good. So what are we
And
chatting
how
about
are
today,
both
guys?
of you?
Oh, we're
Oh,
good. Oh my
We're
goodness.
good.
Sorry.
How are you?
So that's- Yeah, good. I you know, I've been having a nice
What's
chat with you all
What's
afternoon.
happened since the last time we spoke?
I know, yeah, we can't really give a language update because there's no new update.
What do we predict that we will have done
you
between the
didn't give a
times
li-
of
you
those
didn't give an update.
podcasts?
You just like said an overall thing of what you're doing. You didn't say like how different. Like usually you'd be like, that was bad. That was wrong. It's more like, no, I don't know. I'll get there.
Oh, man.
By the end of this
Yeah,
podcast.
usually it would be a like, oh well.
I love
I've
that.
been
I like how you have the
working on-
structure of the podcast like internalized, and we're here like, just another one.
What can
I
say?
believe this is
I
episode
didn't like
23.
Early where their friend, where that fan comes and then is like directing their show. That's like every time Ophelia's on the podcast.
But like, you think these are notes about like, you know, what we're going to talk about? No, it's notes of like just.
You've analyzed every
It's like-
episode.
Yeah, exactly.
At 23
a
minutes,
bullet
there was a
journal.
long pause,
Yeah,
and
guys,
it was
does that mean
awkward
you
for
got-
everybody.
So yeah, you like with the podcast that we filmed. I mean, we've been having a chat for about 4 hours.
Yeah, does Squid keep track of this stuff? I don't think so.
Well, we had to hang up at one point too.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I was recording
So-
for a solid 2 hours.
right. Yeah. All right. Well,
Nice.
it's because we started at like 1:30.
True.
That was my thinking. I mean, it's now gone pitch black outside.
Yeah,
So-
we
Yeah,
got
it
to see,
genuinely
like,
has been about
progression.
4 hours of us.
Well, today
So today,
we are going to discuss some dabbling.
dabbling.
Am I allowed to
Dabbling.
give this the title, the subtitle within the
have
video?
dubbed this podcast "Dabbling on Them Haters,"
Yes!
forgotten.
Yes!
Yeah, that's good.
but I don't. I'm gonna get sued. So,
It's not the title, but it is most definitely the subtitle.
but just so you all know, in our hearts, it's called "Dabbling on Them
Like,
Haters."
which haters? I mean, people are just speaking the truth when they say, "How dare you?" I'll take them out. It's okay, Abigail.
You'll defend us.
We're gonna start seeing in
Oh,
all of our
no.
comment sections. Anyone leaves something like mildly rude, they're like, "Hey, I couldn't hear you super well." Ophelia's like yelling back at them, like, "How dare you!"
Give her a break! She wants
They
so
are trying so hard.
Like, it's difficult being that. Like, chill out! You know, that's what I'll do. You know, it'll be fine. I just
Oh my
noticed
God.
there's this terrifying child on this water bottle, and I just feel like it's the most awful,
Oh, it's
as they
really
would say.
old
Like,
green
it just
tea.
is like trying to be. Like, I
Wow.
don't feel like that's appropriate
I'm
for
not
so
sure I
many
agree.
reasons. Okay, you agree that it's.
No, I said
like,
I
you
don't
it's a
think I
good idea?
agree.
With me?
I
Or
don't
with
think
this?
the
Ah,
child.
the fights have begun.
Oh no.
We never got a fight in the last podcast.
Damn it! Okay.
Yeah, we did.
All right, well, today we're talking about dabbling, and I feel like every podcast ends up being me playing
not
devil's
sure I wanna
advocate
talk
to
about
Matt
dabbling.
talking about dabbling. So I feel like
I
even
can
though
do
I
that
don't
this
have
time.
any issue with dabbling, I'm gonna be here like, all right, but
But,
All right.
yes,
So
okay.
where do we want to start? Do we want to talk about perks of dabbling, dangers of dabbling? Are there any dangers? Is dabbling wonderful? Should everybody
Number
dabble?
one, what does dabbling mean for you?
yeah, I was to
let's
say
define
first maybe
this
let's
for-
define dabbling.
It's on such a similar wavelength. Oh, so great. Sorry, I stopped.
Oh, God.
Okay, what does it mean for you, Matt?
For me, dabbling is either the 5 minutes I took to do a lesson on Duolingo in this one language I was thinking about, or I'm watching a video and I'm just listening to it, or it's I decided to open a brand new notebook and record some Italian today, and I wrote down the Russian alphabet and didn't do anything past that, but I'm doing something.
Oh,
You
okay,
know?
so dabbling for you is very, like, just, like,
Low-key.
very... Yeah, okay.
Sometimes my dabbling is a thing much more intense, like with my Japanese, and I genuinely do lessons and I'm going through a course book and I'm doing Pimsleur, but it's over a very short period of time, and it's very much not sustained nor sustainable the way I'm doing it, and so everything I'm learning in that period will be forgotten as soon as I stop doing it, because I'm just doing it to see if this is what I want to be learning. You know?
What about you, Abigail?
Yeah, I'd say my
I love that you're the moderator when you come on here. It's so great.
my
Well, I
dabbling
was very
is-
chilled last time, and I feel like I mean my... Really?
My
I was
dabbling
mostly
is pretty
distracted by
much
your
the
cat.
same, but I don't think I'd count like watching a video or something. Like that would probably be me just like seeing if I'd
Yeah.
want to learn a language or something, or just happening to do something in another language. So like for me, dabbling would be only if I was doing like a Duolingo lesson, like you said, or
Yeah.
like opening up a notebook but only learning like the basics of something and then leaving it for something else, or like testing out a lot of things but not studying a certain language seriously. I guess the difference for me would be like, do I go into a language project with the intention of sticking with it, or like with specific goals? Like I'd say the goals are like the big thing for me, because whenever I try to seriously study a language, I like make myself goals for it. So I plan somewhat what I'm going to be studying or what resources I'm going to be using. But like if I have no sort of set goals or idea for this language, and maybe it's just like I just feel like learning a few like Swedish words tonight,
Yeah.
then that's like dabbling. But like if I like open a textbook and I'm like, I would like to get to a basic conversational level in Swedish, then it wouldn't be dabbling, because I like have a set plan for it.
Yeah, and I feel
Okay.
like dabbling kind of stops becoming dabbling once the project is kind of elonged. That's not a word.
Elongate.
Yeah, that just sounds wrong. You know, it starts to.
Extended.
Yeah, it starts to last over a longer period of time. So, and you start
Okay.
like maybe forming some goals or having a sense of what you want out of it. Which I don't think you necessarily always need goals, but I feel like that's a different conversation. You know?
Apart from goals, can I put forward
No, you
my...
can't. I'm sorry.
Wow. All right, guys. I'll just show myself out.
Podcast is over. Bye.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, I'm gonna do it anyway. I feel like I dabble in all of my languages with the exception of French, because I feel like I only dabble because when it comes to French, it's something like I do just naturally like listen to a podcast every day in French, or like do some whatever in French, or just like naturally, or like whatever, or have to do something like a lesson in French or something like that, or like as in like teach a lesson in French. Whereas because I will go maybe a month without looking. You froze. Oh no, you didn't. Okay. You were just looking. I will go a month without looking at my Russian notes, or like, so I basically, when I feel like my language has become a religion, I stop. But like a religion that, like, you know, I wear like daily matins and evensong, rather than like a, you know, like a couple of times a year. So that's my opinion.
That's interesting, because like when I like haven't touched a language for a little while, usually that's like my language. I consider it more like my project's put on hold, or like I'm not working on that project.
Yeah, it's
at the time. But it's like, I wouldn't say it's dabbling. Then I'd still say it's like but I think it's because usually it's like I want to get to this, like finish this course, the language, and then I'll like set it aside for a little bit afterwards, and like I'm still trying to like keep up with it usually, but like it's not like a main goal. But so my like difference between like that and like dabbling would be like if I never really had any sort of like set goals for things and stuff, or like, if I was just constantly switching, it's dabbling.
Whereas most of my goals tend to be either like be able to like get by in a conversation, or like be able to read like whatever text. But when I feel like, because I feel like French has taken over my life,
I feel like that
in a way that Russian I can't see it ever doing, just because. Even though I love it, I also it's very much Stockholm syndrome. And like talking of Stockholm, like Swedish is the language I return to constantly, but very rarely study formally. I mostly just study it in like immersion, and like so listen to like Studia, or whatever podcast, or like Bron, or like anything like that. So I you shouldn't probably have to dance every time. See, there we go. I dance when I have to try and pronounce things in Swedish. So so I feel like, so that's my feeling. Even though I have goals, they're not goals that I it's like, whereas I just feel like my French is the thing that like takes the front. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong. I actually really like that approach, because a lot of times I think view my other language pursuits outside of German very much as like, oh, is this ever going to get beyond dabbling? Because, you know, I took my French seriously when I was held accountable for it, but then after that I really let it fall away. Add one, yeah. And then after that, I don't listen to podcasts in French as much as like when I go and I'm like, all right, time to do some language stuff. I'm like, put on a German podcast, let that play.
Yeah.
And like that's just my instinctive.
Yeah, I guess I imagine it like, okay, so I imagine that all of the languages I learn are people. Bear with me. My body's like, no, don't say it. I'm going to give you a coughing. But no, it's fine. We can stay. Stay away. And I am married and in a deep, long, loving relationship with the French language. And then, but I'm really unfaithful, and every now and then I frolic. But like, I always come back to French, and so like my frolicking is never. It's always like bursts of passion, and then like it goes badly, and then I return home. That's how it feels.
Do you think French is ever going to confront you about your extramarital affairs? It tries to take over my native language and like stops me from spelling English words correctly. Really?
So when I'll be looking at something and I'll be like, but why is this wrong? And it'll be like, well, that's like why?
I do that. I actually can't spell the word Italian in English because I always put an E at the end instead of an A. Wow. Instead of IAN, I do IEN. And then it like always autocorrects, and I'm like, oh, I did that. Like I just don't even notice until it corrects, and I'm like, oh yeah, we use an A
I have
in English.
Very similar. Yeah, I have very similar things, or just kind of words that are not, or like phrases that are not right. So French confronts my infidelity by like taking away my native tongue and being like, well, you're gonna need me. So so that's I think that's how my French deals with it.
That's really interesting.
So, because if you're one in my house is having a bit of frolicking.
Oh no!
No, everyone's it's good. It's good. It was more just like, this is why we're in the earphones. By frolicking, I mean having a nice time. What? So Abigail, yours would be like your long-term relationship would be with
French.
and Matt, yours would be with German. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think by getting my degree in French, that's like my marriage
Oh,
certificate to French.
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
mine too. In the same way that I'm like, I left behind some of history for you, French. Like, can we get on forever now? And it's like, that is what you think. So, I feel like that's how it goes. You're not even studying French history. You're studying all Arabic history. Like, what do you want me to do with it? So that's how I feel like the conversation with my French lover goes. What's the next like level down from your like? So when does the dabbling start? With which language does your dabbling start? Does your dabbling, because I guess you've been to stay with a German family, so does your dabbling start with your German, or is your like, sorry Abigail, but like when does which level does it become the old dabbling?
Yeah, see, because since I feel like I sort of work, I guess, in like a sort of dabbling method, but it's like also sort of not, where like I'll do like a set project where I'm not dabbling in other things. I'm like committed to one, but also I keep up with others at the same time. Like even when I'm like committed to furthering my German, I like try to use French in my daily life and that sort of thing. But I'll have like one set project, and then when I like reach a certain level or like finish a certain course or get to whatever my endpoint for the goals was, usually after like a few months, I'll like kind of put that project on hold / like I work on maintaining it but not necessarily furthering it and putting as much time and effort into it, and then I'll like work on something else because I kind of need to switch back and forth in order to keep myself from like, I guess, like burning out and just feeling like like I'm not really making progress and stuff. So like I'd say that those are still, like, I don't consider those dabbling projects, but then, like, when we talk about it now, like, I wonder, should Bulgarian technically be a dabbling thing for me? I feel like since I had, like, such a committed run with it with Ad 1, I, like, view it as, like, a intensive project I did that I just haven't gotten to pick up since. And, like, I guess my time with Bulgarian since Ad 1 has been, like, dabbling, because it's been, like, very short bursts where it's been, like, I should work on relearning all of this stuff that I forgot.
I feel like you have a similar it sounds like to you that you have a similar relationship with Bulgarian that I do to Russian, in that I find it very difficult to remember things. Like, what's your name again? Ivan, John, what are you called? So, you know, in continuing the like very not intellectual level of the people, the language speaking people. So I don't know. I'd say I shouldn't consider Russian, because I've dedicated so much time to Russian, but I think it's just that it upsets me, and like I walk out on it and I go, I'm never seeing you again, and back the next week being like, hello, I'm sorry, please love me. So I don't know, I find it really hard to know how I think or maybe it's also a style thing, maybe it's also like, yeah, the only language I learn is French, then I don't have to feel guilty about like letting everything else go to waste. Oh man,
I think it's also just I've been learning German for so long, like, I don't even know how many years it is at this point. Probably, what, like, 7, 8 going on? 7 going on 8, I'd say. Like, quite a while. And, of course...
I started French when I was 4. I've been learning French for 15 years.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I know. But I learned nothing for the good first 10 years at the very least.
That's the other thing, like, all this information comes in and it just doesn't mean anything until you make it mean something. And I mean, that totally relates to dabbling, but with German, I would say it was just a school class for a while until it meant something to me, and then it became like part of my identity over time, and then, you know, it just became so ingrained in who I, like, how I lived, that you know, I don't think I'll ever be able to just attain the level of German that I have now with another language, just because of how long I've had German for. And I mean, I feel like I could maybe get another language to where my German is now, but in like another who knows how many years, with like having to deal with school and having to deal with other side projects and living and breathing and doing everything. But just...
Oh God, sorry.
Yeah, but when it comes to just dabbling, I think it gives me a freedom to go test out old languages and see how I'm feeling, and do I want to throw myself back into this, because
Yeah.
listen, right now I'm on like a romance kick where I'm doing Spanish and Italian, and it's making me go back and I'm listening to a lot more French, and just I'm like really reinvigorated with it right now. Whereas I don't know how much in the past year I've even just like wanted to think about it, you know? Yeah.
And to think you used to hate romance languages.
Yeah, hate's a strong word. I used to just
No, you hated
prefer.
romance languages.
I used to prefer.
It's because I remember it was in one of the first videos of yours I ever seen. I remember being like, Matt hates romance languages. And I remember being like, oh no, that's pretty upsetting. So
I
it's
totally
nice.
don't hate them. That's a lie,
Okay.
Abigail.
Wow, that's you. Yeah. And so, okay. I wonder whether my definition of dabbling is just a...
Go for it. I want to hear it anyway.
No, the one I
Sure,
gave
give it.
earlier.
Matt,
Shoot.
were you here?
No, actually, I wasn't.
Thanks for paying attention.
My cat was here.
Um,
Passed out.
Really good. Okay, so in what ways do you think dabbling can be a good?
I mean, I think Abigail does this thing where when she's trying to figure out what language she wants to learn, or just like commit some study time to, or even dabble in, she'll just listen to the languages spoken back to back. So like you were deciding between like Swedish and Danish, I think, at one point, and you're just listening to a video here, then that one, then this one, then that one, and like hearing them spoken like that, like first of all helps you identify the sounds, but really kind of allows you to pick between them, I think. Of course, though, you have to decide on more than just sound sometimes.
Yeah, I've also previously, like, there was one point where I was deciding, I didn't end up sticking with any of these, but I was between, like, Spanish and Portuguese and Italian, and so I did the first lesson on Duolingo for each. Yeah, we did the first lesson for each, and then decided, I don't even know what we picked, because whatever it was, we didn't end up doing. But, like, I've taken that approach before, where it's, like, I'll study a little bit of languages to see if I want to study it, and then go off of that. And I think also I previously used to dabble, like, exclusively, I'd say, like, that, because, like, when I was younger, I, like, would study languages on my own, and I don't remember anything from prior to really my French class in starting in 8th grade, and then also, like, when I started learning Esperanto with Matt in my sophomore and junior year of high school, I guess my junior year, but, yeah, but prior to that, I learned, like, Italian at one point, I learned Spanish, I learned Swedish, I learned sign language, but, like, I never, like, formally studied them, mainly because I didn't know how to, so, like, I'd consider those, like, dabbling things, and then now my dabbling is typically to, like, let me know where I want to head next, sort of. Like, also, if like, I've got my list of, like, languages I hope to study, like, someday, and so then when I'm, like, I'm ready to take on a new project, it'll be, like, do I want Arabic? Do I want Japanese? Do I want Swedish? Like, I'll, like, do a little bit of each and see where I feel like right now I want to be.
That's so interesting. I guess, whereas I never have that thing where I'm like, should I learn this one or this one? It's like this internal compulsion, like, I need this. Or
that's so interesting.
In the example I gave to you, probably before we started recording, with that my boyfriend, who is Russian, his mum, every time I see her, because she knows I make videos about languages, she always says, well, whatever language you're learning, it's not Russian. And so, with the exception of that, like, mostly it comes from, like, this internal compulsion to, like, so I went to Sweden, and also, and then when I was 16, when I just turned 16, or maybe just before I turned 16, and then in my first year of high school, sixth form history, I studied 17th century Russia, and it came up that Sweden had an empire, and I was like, what? This beautiful, amazing country with this language that I thought was friendly people, they had an empire, and they're, like, historically really relevant, it's time. And then, like, that summer, I like made so many post-it notes of Swedish vocabulary and had it all around the house, and like there were, and when, because my parents were away, and then I forgot to take down a load of them before they came back, and they were like, what is this word, jordgubbar, like what is that meant to be? I was like, jordgubbar. It's like, this is a strawberry, very important Duolingo words. And so I think, like, I've never had that experience of being like, should I learn this one or this one? It's always been like this internal obsession. I feel like I get obsessed with loads of languages, and then I just never. Then I don't. I then, like, you mentioned, I think in like the last like podcast you did before. I mean, like the one that was the first one of this year, where you asked Matt if he just was like in a perpetual honeymoon phase of them, and like that made me go like, gosh. So I'm worried about that a bit.
Yeah, because I feel like for me that was like what I used to be like, and so I think it's kind of one of those things where like since then I realized that like I wasn't making as much progress by like jumping from thing to thing, because like even after when I was younger and I didn't know how to study languages, then there were like times where I'd sort of started to figure it out, like just because I was older and I sort of like even just as you get older you know how to study more. Like when I was 8, obviously I didn't know how to approach like learning a language on my own, because like I didn't, like the homework you're doing at that level too is like read a book at home and talk about it or whatever. And like so even then it was like I jumped between a bunch of things, and but then I kind of realized that like when you stick with one then you like start to make more progress. And like obviously I still don't follow that to the degree that some people feel you should, of like only learn one until you are native, then you can move to another one, like because I like to switch between my projects and like do multiple projects at once. But
Abigail, Steve Kaufman said that's what you have to do.
Yikes. But like I realized that, like,
Abigail.
in order to have like at least a basic level in the languages, I need to not like get bored after a little while and leave it. So I think also what I do now is when I am overcome with like this, I really want to study this language, I have a list in my phone, and it's genuinely like my languages bucket list, and it's so nerdy that I have that in my phone.
No, it's not. That's amazing.
Like add it. It's like in alphabetical order, and I just like add the language that I want to learn, and it's there. And so it's like, great, I know all the languages that I hope to eventually study at least a little bit, and then I like let myself do that when I have a little bit more time. The only times when I've been somewhat overcome with like, oh, time to study this now, is when it's more so out of like, there's this thing coming up that if I know this language, it'll be really good. Like right now I'm learning, or I'm sort of on hold with it right now, but I'll pick it back up again in the spring. But I was like, I should just start learning Haitian Creole right now, even though like it wasn't sort of planned in, just because like something came up where it was like, I have this opportunity to use Haitian Creole in a real life setting and have it like be meaningful, but if I don't learn it before that time frame, like obviously it won't be usable. So like I was like, oh, time to go do that. But other than that, I try to keep myself on somewhat of a track, because I know otherwise I totally could be like, I'm really feeling like learning this, and then as soon as it starts to become more difficult and less of that feeling of like, wow, I'm just learning something new, then I totally would just jump ship and move to a new language. But
that's so interesting.
I'm worried that's me.
Yeah, you know, I feel like I've always got a pull towards something, and I think I just get pulled towards lots of things really quickly. Oh wow, I just got out of focus. Come on.
You're using a fancy camera.
No, it's really... Wow, where am I? Oh, there we go.
There you go.
What was it? I feel like I just get pulled towards lots of languages really quickly because I just really like them, and I get very excited about languages and really want to find out everything about languages all the time. And so that's why I can like just jump into Latin and be now studying Latin for a week, or I'm learning Hungarian and really I'm just like seeing if I enjoy it. And so I shouldn't come to these grandiose terms of saying like I'm learning Finnish, because no, I'm really just dabbling in it. And like I was just dabbling in Latin, you know?
Yeah. Does dabbling include when you learn the theory behind the language? Because I feel like I know the theory behind a few languages, but I don't know those languages. Does dabbling include include that, or is
Can you
that
explain
just
theory? What do you mean by theory?
so like, oh, I feel like I know a lot about Romanian without knowing any Romanian. I feel like, oh, I understand that it is like the lost Romance language slash everyone's like Slavic best friend. And I've spoken to many Romanians who live in London about it, and like I always get to be like, oh yeah, I have a cool language, and then like, but I don't know anything about it. Like I can't say anything. So I don't know.
I guess maybe I'd say
Yeah.
that's like a linguistic study
Mhm.
in my like, at least in my view. It's like
But it
less of like a
doesn't feel
dabbling
like-
in the language and more of like
Right.
a dabbling in
feel like-
linguistics.
I guess it doesn't feel like proper enough to feel like a dabbling in linguistics.
Yeah,
It
like-
feels like it feels too play.
I don't think I'd even consider it, like, I recorded all of my language notebooks the other day, and I have my Xhosa notebook. Xhosa,
Yeah.
sorry. I gotta do the right click, because
We were really disappointed.
someone's gonna call me out on it, and I'll be like, I'm
Are
sorry,
they?
listen, it's the click, it's the back there.
I've never seen anyone call you out for Xhosa.
Either way, I feel like all that, it's really
No.
only like, oh, can you not hear me?
Oh, there you go. We've come back.
Hello.
Oh, you froze after I said that,
Oh no.
but that's fine.
The no is just Ophelia expressing how she feels when you speak. I feel the same.
Oh well, listen, I feel the same as well, so it's okay.
No, I mean genuinely. I mean that like I've never seen anyone say like like people get angry for different things. What do people get angry with me about? I think I like people often just say your Russian's really broken. I'm like, this is true. It's
mean-
broken.
Yeah, I mean, I agree when people like comment on my German and they're like, "Oh, you know, your grammar could be better," and I'm like, "That's a fact." It's like it's like there's criticism and then there's like a critique, you know.
Yeah.
But with my Xhosa, I would say that it was never really dabbling or anything. I was really interested, and so I got this book and I was looking into it a lot, and like I was just fascinated by it and the people, and just like the language was something I've never heard before and was just so new and so nuanced and different from every other thing I've ever seen. Me like just trying to write down some of it and internalize it is really just me trying to understand something I don't understand, which I mean is really any language learning. But I would not say I was trying to learn it to speak it. I was just so fascinated by it that I couldn't stop myself from like taking notes on it and like just learning about it, you know? Whereas like with Norwegian, I really liked the music I was listening to and wanted to be able to understand spoken Norwegian. And like my love for Norwegian, I would say honestly came out of nowhere. I still cannot pin it down to this day. Whereas French, I would say I started
Or
learning.
Abigail, there are like lighter ways to say.
Oh man. I would say my French came from like Abigail spoke French. I wanted to speak with her and like I wanted to travel. And just yeah. You know? I would say like there's linguistic
Fun.
inquiries, you know?
Okay.
And
Inquiry,
dabbling.
like something's gone wrong at work.
There's the stages. There's actually studying, there's dabbling, and then there's inquiring.
I know. Inquiring. I thought you said the inquiry, and I was like,
Oh,
oh my
no.
goodness, who's stolen the stapler? I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Like we've been talking for such a long time. I feel like a bit delirious.
I think we are a little bit, honestly.
What other? Did you have any? You had said you had 2 notes, Abigail.
I've got more than 2 notes.
Oh, sorry.
Also, what quantifies a note? I like have like random bullet points and arrows and things. Like these are my notes.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Well,
So
okay. I don't know.
a
I'm
whole
afraid I'm going to have a piece of chocolate, and I hope sound of me is not different. Sorry. Just,
You could also
Yeah,
just-
no, I just had like my
This mic
like
can go there.
previous dabbling, like I think
Very
has
safe.
led to now my like mix of like settling and not. Like I think it's definitely influenced the fact that now I I don't study like one until I'm native level. I'll study German for a little while, and then I get to a level I feel pretty comfortable in, and then I'm like, I'm gonna focus on this other language for a little while, and I sort of switch back and forth. But I do try to keep them still like more prominent projects, I guess, as opposed to like dabbling, and I try to maintain like the level I get to from my project while I focus on something else.
Yeah.
I'm not always the best at that, but like I do at least attempt to, so that way it's like just what am I focusing on right now.
Yeah.
Friends, I've just thought, this is really not relevant. Well, it is relevant to dabbling and kind of like, it was like, carousel, and I was like, that's what you're doing with Spanish and Italian. I talk about it a lot, but there's the Linguistica 360 News in Slow Languages series.
Yes.
And normally they have like Spanish, but they have Latin American Spanish, and they have Italian. And the reason I was thinking that is because last night I listened to the News in Slow Italian, because I haven't like, my Italian has sort of been a bit abandoned. And so I listened to that, and then I wanted to make sure I gotten most of it. So then I listened to it in French, and then I was like, okay, now I'm going to try to listen to it in Spanish. So
it's the same topics in different
languages? It's just different native speakers who present to you, and it's really like, bienvenue, bonjour et bienvenue à Slow French, or like, buongiorno, benvenuti a News in Slow Italian, and you're like, oh wow.
I'm so listening to this later. That's so great.
No, dude, I thought as like a thing for like that. Sorry, that's not really relevant to dabbling, but in terms of your challenge and like balancing more than one language, which is kind of related to dabbling. Sorry.
No, totally. I mean, I've dabbled in Spanish before going into this course, you know? I've never taken an actual course, never really gone further than like a chapter or two into any other course, whereas this one I'm genuinely dedicated to.
Hey, we studied like half of the colloquial Spanish book.
Yeah, you did!
Okay, fair enough. But I would say by myself, I've never really gotten much further than like, I had Teachers of Latin American Spanish, and I was going through that, and I looked at my notes the other day, and it's quite a lot, but none of that stayed, and I never use any of that. So when dabbling starts producing results, it's not dabbling? Like, when do you transition from dabbling to language learning, or like, where is the boundary between dabbling and a language study, you know?
Yeah, I think for me it's just where do I have more of like, not necessarily a structure for it, because sometimes my language learning doesn't have structure. It's like I'm watching Peppa Pig in German all day today, and that's my language learning for the day.
Fair
but
enough.
like when I have like more specific plans or goals or ideal things to be doing with it, I guess, is when it doesn't become dabbling. Like, even if my goal is like, I want to reach an A1, like I want to be able to just introduce myself, like that's more of like a goal, I guess, for me. So that's like a study, even if it's like a very like low-key study where it's like I just need to know the absolute basics because I'm traveling to this place. Like that's like studying it. But I guess I don't know, because I guess I feel like I have like short-term dabbling and then like long-term dabbling, like in the sense that like if someone asks me what languages I speak, like I'd probably then, like, let's say I learn enough Greek to go to Greece or something and then I never touch it again, even if I had like a short-term more intensive study, I guess I'd call that like a dabble, because like then when people are like, what languages do you speak, I'd probably be like, and I've dabbled in Greek. Like I don't actually speak the language.
Yeah.
Because I only know how to introduce myself and order coffee or something.
I've dabbled in Japanese, and like by that I mean I can say I don't understand Japanese.
Yeah, I'd say I've dabbled in Japanese. That's definitely like a dabbling project I've done, because every time I picked it up too, it's been for like a month, and it's been like, even if I've been trying to start up a longer project, it hasn't really become something that's been as plotted out and like as structured with goals and stuff. I feel like whenever I do structure things with goals, I end up like sticking to them more. So I think whenever it is like a lower key thing for me, it ends up becoming dabbling.
And like Japanese has always been a thing, like just specifically with that instance, Japanese has been a thing for me that it's always been like, I guess, like a comfort thing. Like it's been a very like nice language to fall back on, because I find I can get back into the swing of it very quickly, very little that I know, and just like the hiragana and katakana come very easily back to me. Kanji is a different story. but and I've spoken about this already, but like I find learning the grammar and like positioning words and sentences are really like it's just comforting to me, and so I enjoy things like that. Like it almost feels like a puzzle, but language learning, which is a puzzle. And you know,
Okay, is there a certain level? Is it more a time bending thing, or is it a level thing that stops it from being a dabble to being something you've learned?
I mean, I think if you're
I think it must be more time
well
for me, because I want to say level because, well, but the thing is I don't know, because I want to say level, like, because my Bulgarian,
I want to say level as well,
or I want to say time, I mean.
I want to say level.
I don't know. Because, like, my Bulgarian, like, I feel like didn't get to that high of a level. Like, I was still in the A range, like, on the CEFR scale. Like, probably an A1 even, maybe an A2, I don't know. But, like, somewhere in that, like, very basic, I was still a beginner, definitely, in Bulgarian. Like, I was able to have a 15-minute conversation, but, like, I could only talk about, like, pretty basic subjects, and, I mean, I couldn't understand, like, slang. If people speak too fast, I'm like, and like even now I've like forgotten a lot of it because it was like learned at a very basic level, but I don't think I'd really consider that a dabbling project because like I studied it every day for like an hour for 3 months. So like there was like probably like what would that be, like 90 hours or something at least put into that project. And so like would I consider that a dabble? Probably not, because like I was spending like that was my main focus for like a whole summer was studying Bulgarian.
You know,
so
I think I'd give you that, but what if I then told you somebody is using Duolingo to learn Japanese and they're doing it for 10 minutes a day for however long. It's just they have a reminder on their phone telling them 10 minutes Japanese now.
Like Headspace, where it tells you aggressively, get some calm. I don't know what
Headspace is.
Does it actually? Like I know what Headspace is, but I didn't know it said it like that.
I just made the mistake of like setting up notifications where it's like every day it'd be like time to chill out and like I'm sorry. Anyway, so you have your Japanese.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I feel like almost in a sense dabbling isn't based on, for me, either level or time, actually. It's more so like my mindset.
Interesting. Okay.
Like, do I feel like I'm studying? Like, for me, it was like I am studying Bulgarian. And, like, I was making really slow progress with the amount of time I was putting into it because it's just so very different from English, and the resources for it are not very wonderful. So, like, it's one of those things where, like, I was making a lot slower progress than I do in, like, honestly, my Spanish and Italian are, like, almost at the level that my Bulgarian was at after, like, 2-3 weeks, while Bulgarian took me, like...
Isn't it painful? I'm the
so
same with my
long.
Russian. I'm like, I've never formally studied Italian ever. And I have videos of me talking, like, fairly comfortably in Italian. And like it's not great, but it's like definitely at least the same level as my Russian, and it breaks my heart.
I like
but I feel like because my mindset,
Yeah,
I think though because my mindset was like I am studying Bulgarian, and like I still look back, like I don't think I've studied, but I think I've only dabbled in Bulgarian since @1.
Right.
Interesting.
But because then it's just been like I should kind of relearn this again, but I never take it as seriously, I guess. But like. I feel like that was studying it, even if it only got me to a very basic level, because of just, like, how I viewed it, but, like, I feel like at the same time I could just casually every so often go on and do, like, 10 minutes of Duolingo Japanese, and I'd probably view it as, like, dabbling in Japanese, just because I'm not, like, being like, I have these goals for Japanese, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm sticking to it as often as I can, and I want to be seeing progress, and I want to be, like, doing these things and all that.
That's interesting. Whereas maybe this is a part of the Stockholm syndrome. I think comes from I wouldn't necessarily. If I was going to be choosing a Slavic language, I would have naturally chosen Polish because that's just a language I've wanted to always learn. Also, I've been planning. This summer, I was given the first Ruslan book, which is like the classic Russian textbook, which is like passport, пожалуйста, and like. I was planning on learning Swedish, and so I feel like I think there's just like a long term, like Russian is not the language I would have naturally chosen, but this is the this is the language that is necessary for me to be able to communicate with this group of people that I want to be able to communicate with, and I want to be able to charm them because I'm such a parent pleaser, and I'm like, well, the only way to do that is to learn Russian, and then I'm like, but Russian's so hard. So I think also part of and because Russian I know should be my priority after French, and so then I'm like, well, then nothing else really matters, and everything else is just fun. So I consider all the other languages fun languages, and then Russian is holding me close.
What if you laddered from French to Russian? Would that make it more fun for you? Oh, shoot.
Oh, no. I do massive. It is. I just find Russian damn hard. So, yeah, I think it's things. But anyway, and I think I think it's partly the pressure of, like, people being like, well, the people I'm trying to speak it with, being like, well, you know, why are you learning Arabic? And like, so I mean, I think that's part of it.
I think a lot of it is like they're probably just getting in your head a lot, and when you're sitting
they're
here
lovely.
trying to make, no, I know they are.
I'm just obsessed with like trying to, you know, be the best, like, please like me. So yeah, absolutely, definitely right that I am overthinking everything, but no matter how many times my boyfriend says this, I'm always still like so yeah,
because I will like come out of my room after my hours of like studying or dabbling or whatever, and I'll be like, hey family, look at what I can say in Norwegian now, and I'll say something and they'll be like, oh, that's cool, but have you started learning Spanish yet? And it's like, for some people, just like some languages don't matter at all, and like in America we think the only other language that exists is Spanish. I
mean, here it's like, well, you've done French, like that's all that matters. Oh my goodness, are you learning, like, German is a bad language, because I wanted to learn German at school, because I'd learnt French all the way through primary school, and then I had the option, and then we did German for 1 year with French as well, and we had the option of choosing either German or French, and I was like, well, I've done much better in German, so I think I'll do German. My mum was like, no, do not, I will not have you speak German.
Oh man.
So it's also funny that like we never learned Spanish, but apparently now they're doing Spanish and they got rid of German, but we had a teacher called Frau Scherer. So, like, Mrs. Scissors.
I was going to say, yeah, it sounds like scissors.
And she, like, sat on the desk and would tell us, like, and, like, just, it didn't help that they'd employed her, because it felt like, you know, she'd say, like, German is the most important language that you can learn. And you're like, well, okay. And she'd be like, it is the most spoken language in the world. And you'd be like, in Europe?
Yeah.
In the world. And you're like, please, like, we're already stupid English people who are mostly learning about the Nazis rather than the British Empire. We already think you're awful. Like, don't give us more reason. So yeah,
good. That's I feel like that's similar to Abigail's experience with her Hebrew teacher, who was like, this language is too hard to learn.
Oh, he said. Oh, you know? Yeah. That's so
I considered Hebrew a dabble, actually. I'd like
to
throw
you
that
took
in.
a college class in it.
Yeah, which is weird, but I think it's, again, the mindset thing, because I think I learned early on with that class that Hebrew wasn't what I really had an interest in studying. Like, I just really wanted a language class, and I was like, Hebrew seems the most interesting of the, like, two that currently fit in my schedule. And so I took that, and, like, even beyond her not, like, being a great Hebrew teacher, like, I sort of, I think maybe had she been a better teacher, maybe I would have been like, wow, you know, I can get into this. But like, I think as it was, I was like, I don't really have that much of an outside interest in learning this language. Like, it's never been something that's like called to me. Like, I genuinely just chose it kind of randomly. So it probably took up more like how you viewed Russian. Like, it's probably one of those things where I was like, well, now I'm taking it, so I guess I gotta learn enough to at least pass this class.
Exactly.
But I think then the difference was then while I was taking it, I didn't have the drive to, like, watch shows in Hebrew and, like, listen to Hebrew music and stuff, because I just wasn't really interested. Like, I'd rather then be studying, like, French and Bulgarian, like, outside of class. Like, I had other things I wanted to be doing, so it became, like, a dabble where I'm, like, I learned how to, like, introduce myself, and, like, honestly, I've forgotten, like, all of my Hebrew now. Because it just became this, like, well, now I know these cool Hebrew words. I've learned funky things about how, like, conjugating works in Hebrew, like how cool. I can write the Hebrew alphabet, but like beyond that I didn't like have the drive to continue learning it after the class ended too, which I think is another thing. Like even with my other projects, like with Bulgarian, like I would like to come back to it and further that and bring it to an actually decent level, but like with Hebrew I don't have any plans to like continue it past that class.
Where like whereas I find that like obviously there's an entire like Russian internet out there, and I've been watching recently. It's a really bad.
For some reason, the Russian internet to me just sounds like something like the deep web, where it's like a separate internet. Like
that's kind of what Russian, I thought of as well.
Like there's the internet, and then there's the Russian internet.
I'll send you a link. You can open it on. Sorry.
Oh no.
Sorry. Sorry. Yes. No, but I've been watching this TV show called Univer Novaya Общага, which is like, you know, like uni, our halls, like our student accommodation. And it's the most horrific, you know, it just summarizes everything you'd ever imagine about like Russian kind of uncomfortable misogyny, I think.
No.
There we go. But but because it's very like it's a lot like basically the entire show is like attractive people convincing either arrogant people or unattractive and stupid people to do things without them knowing, and so there's a lot of Anton. And so it's like it's very like over the top and very like even if you don't know exactly what's happening, you can tell from the fact that it's like, come here, let me tell you, and you're like, oh, okay, so they're guiding them. You have all the, like very over the top. So I even though I don't really enjoy it and I'm really upset about like, you know, you have like all of like the women, like there are the two of the women who are very beautiful, and then one of them who has short hair, so she's not attractive at all, and like you know, just like all this sort of stuff, and like just the boy that has no personality apart from like being obsessed with one of the beautiful women, and then the try-hard ladies man, and then the like businessman, and you just, you know, you have they're awful, but it's so obvious that it's kind of it's helpful to learn, but at the same time, but then I'm like, again, The Bridge I watch for fun because I find it interesting, and I've been trying to find something similar, but it's not as accessible as the Swedish stuff, and so I just find and it's probably just me being stupid, but I find Swedish stuff way more accessible when you wouldn't think it would be that way around, I guess. I don't know. I just think we quite like Sweden. We think Sweden's great, whereas we're a bit like in this country. I mean, and then Russia, we're a bit like, I don't know, pussy riot. I don't know what's going on. So yeah.
I mean, we had a whole war with Russia, so.
Well, so did we.
It's pretty much the same.
Like, don't forget about. Down Britain. So yeah. So I think there's also an element of that as well, which makes it quite hard to like find things.
Yeah, I feel engaging resources is a thing that's talked about a lot, and especially in Dabbling, a lot of times you really want the great stuff in the beginning, and it's like, oh, get my attention, and let's have fun now, and I'll do the hard work later. And I think I had this when I was doing Norwegian in the beginning, because I would just watch I kveld med Ylvis, and I was just reading the subtitles and laughing at the jokes, honestly. And, you know, I'd occasionally pick up a word or two, but am I really watching it to try to listen to everything? No, not really. Whereas with Dark right now, I have finally found content that I'm, like, actually engaging with and, you know, is testing my German and pushing it. And it's like, oh, wow, I've actually learned new vocabulary already. I can say, like, oh, he ran away. Like, he's gone. He ran away. And I'm like, I didn't look that up in a dictionary. I just, like, am listening and learning through context now. And it feels really good to, like, make progress like that. But I can't do that without my already, like, I have the base to stand on and, like, support myself already with German that I don't think I have in Norwegian. You know?
Yeah, and I think then that's where my, like, critique during our other podcast came from of like, but do you think you just ride out the honeymoon phase and then when that's done you like hop off it? Because like,
Yeah, you know.
I think it's
I would
easy to
say
find like the
now-
like inviting content that's like, hey, come, like, I'm a happy owl, come learn German on my website once a day.
Yeah.
Like, and then but then you get past that and it's like, we're going to teach you this hard grammar concept and you're like, maybe not.
I finally found this wonderful Norwegian resource called, I believe her YouTube channel is Norsklærerne Karense, and she teaches Norwegian from like the very basic to very complex stuff, grammar, which is what I really wanted, and verbs and all these things, in Norwegian, fully in Norwegian without subtitles. And so if she's like introducing a new word, she'll maybe say it twice, and like we'll just like point at things, and like she does all this stuff that like I guess, you know, you learn when you're teaching foreigners your language, which I'm not very educated in, surprisingly, but I find that with my knowledge of Norwegian already, I'm able to understand nearly everything this woman's saying, and like I can look up words and then get everything, and I'm like, oh, I'm genuinely learning Norwegian grammar through Norwegian, which just feels great. I want to do this with German now, and I'd love to do this with French, but like, again, I'm so like intimidated with like my hearing. I feel like isn't there yet. My listening, you know.
I feel like that's
you
actually
keep
then a big part of dabbling too. Like, come to think of it, is like just the inviting content. Like, I don't think anyone would ever really dabble then in something like Bulgarian or like something where it's like you have to work to find materials, and then the materials you do find are like, hello, here is how you say hello in Bulgarian. And I like read it in this monotone voice, and as you're like highlighting in your textbook, like with 0 pictures in it. But like when you have like a website that's like really inviting,
often,
like
often Russian textbooks, the fonts are really smudged, and you're like, okay. I mean, now I know I need reading glasses, but like that was not.
Wait, that might have just been that the whole time. You're like, this all seems real smudged for some reason.
No, I promise. You've got to believe me.
Yeah, but I think
really
it then actually ends up like, I'd never thought about that before, but I think sort of what language people are drawn to dabble in and like what brings people to dabble is actually very much so related to the like resources and the content available. Because I mean, I don't think I'd ever dabble in Bulgarian, and I think even we tried to dabble in Arabic, like I'd say, and like I don't think we were ready for a super serious project. It was going to be more of dabbling, and when we found out that it's like super hard to find Syrian Arabic resources, we were like, oh boy, like this is taking on more. So I feel like you have to be more invested at that point if you're going to learn like a language that you're going to actually have to dig around for some resources for.
There are some people I've met who will solely use like one resource that like obviously like isn't gonna make you anywhere near proficient, and will claim every time you speak to them that like, oh, I'm a language learner as well, I can relate to you on so many levels. And I'm just here like, okay, but you know, have you watched any movies or like listened to any music or done anything outside of this one course? And it's like, oh no, I'm in my little safety bubble, why would I do that? And it's like, okay, so I know what you're doing now. I see you're not actually really learning anything. You're just repeating phrases that you're going to say to me to impress me. I see what you're doing. Whereas, like, once you break out of that bubble, I feel like you can do so much more. And just, you're so much... It's all... it's so, like, just... Half of it is like just people trying to impress other people with languages, and it's really just like you got to do it for yourself. You just need to go through the course and like challenge yourself half the time. I've been I've just been doing so much more listening comprehension lately because it's my hardest thing and it's been exhausting. And a lot of times I'm finding like I'm tempted to like just put it on in the background while I do something else, and I'm like, I can't do that. I just need to sit here and focus on it. You know, I need to just break it down as it's said to me, maybe even rewind it and listen again. And, you know, I've been doing this with, like, even new songs I listen to, because that way it's new content and new words I'm hearing. And I'm finding, like, it's working in French. I'm noticing new words and new songs that I've never listened to before. And I'm like, oh, wow, I should look that up. But, like, you know, things like this. Yeah,
Mhm.
I said a bunch of stuff. I don't know what came out of my mouth.
No, it was interesting. I don't really feel like I have much more to add. I don't
Yeah,
really
I feel
like
like I'm pretty much at the tail end of my stuff. Abigail?
Yeah, that's about it. I feel like it's hard for me to comment on like benefits and like negative aspects to like dabbling just cuz like I feel like it's so much just based on like what your own goals are both with the language themselves and just like your overall like language goals. Like
Totally.
sometimes I do just want to like try out a bunch of languages and sometimes that's for me to find a different language and sometimes it's just for kicks. Like there was a point like a year or two ago where I had some extra time, so I studied ASL for like 3 days, and then I was like, all right, cool.
Mhm.
Now I like know how to fingerspell. But like beyond that, like I often like having more longer term projects, like with more set goals, so that way I can see myself progressing and stuff. So I don't know. There's like benefits and negatives to both, but it also depends. Like if you never want to be native level in any language, but you want to know how to say hello in every language, then sure, dabble it
I'm-
up.
I completely agree. And I even have, so with the benefits of dabbling, Andy Roberts, a longtime viewer of the podcast, on his blog, Oregon
God
Polyglot.
love Andy.
I love Andy. He has a blog post titled "Good News for Dabblers," and the subtitle, I will link to it in the description, is "After a few rounds of dabbling, either the commitment will come or your interest will disappear." And I feel like that sums up everything we've said here.
Oh man,
Why did we
you
even
did
make
it
this?
in
We
what,
could've
like
just-
10 words?
Yeah, no, I know, right? And he's got a whole blog post here talking about it, and I believe he's dabbling in Swahili right now, and he was talking about on his YouTube channel that he's like in his honeymoon phase with the language, but like I feel like with him it's much more like systematic the way you go through it, whereas with like
Yeah.
someone like me, I'm more likely to just fall in and out of a language.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that was
me
fun.
too.
On to the next one, and like I just try
Yeah.
something new, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Huh.
So cool.
It is really cool.
I just wanted to mention that. Thank
No,
you for joining
thank
us,
you.
Ophelia.
Thanks for having me again. I'm very lucky, you know, and and hanging out with me this afternoon / evening for me. Yeah, I feel like I have not contributed that much, but thank you very much for having me.
We are very happy to have you. So go check
Yeah.
out Ophelia. Links everywhere in the
Links,
description.
no, stop saying links
Oh,
everywhere.
shoot.
They'll be in
Sorry.
the description.
It's like just covering the video.
Yeah, you know, there's the artist Yayu Sama, and she has a condition where she sees spots everywhere, and she's created like installations that have spots everywhere, so that you have an insight inside her own head. No,
Oh.
yes, no, okay. Anyway,
That's
so
really interesting.
when you
I
say
haven't heard of her, but
links,
that's
when you
cool.
say links everywhere, it makes me think of like suddenly you're gonna have like anyway, okay, I'm really sorry. I haven't contributed very much, but thank you very much for having me, and wish you your dabbling.
Thank you. All
Do
right.
you have an outro like that goes
No,
with the
I
intro?
think we just say,
No, we're just
Practice.
And
enjoy your
remember-
dabbling.
yeah, practice makes progress.
Progress.
Hey, you do a cool pose.